Our next speaker is Tiffany, and she works in Amazon. And for the last 2 years, she's been doing a lot of Go coding. And she's learning French, and she wants to practice her French here. So do you all want to listen to her talk in French? Oui, there you go. So, no, don't worry. She's going to speak in English because her English is far better than mine. And here's an interesting fact. I asked her, you know what got you to India? And it was just a casual question trying to find out, hey, yeah, Gopher Con, of course. You know, we're popular enough that you want to fly to India for. And she said, no, I actually got a couple married in Ghaziabad, so 1 week before Gopher Con so that I could couple the two. I don't know what she meant by the word couple, but pun intended for sure. So, Tiffany, over to you once we get this set up. Hang on.
Kasakai Pune.
Let's do that again.
Again? Okay.
Yeah.
Kasakai Pune.
Kasakai Pune! Yay. All yours, Tiffany.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
So I'm Tiffany Jernigan. I'm going to talk about how to raise a gopher in record time. So for raising a gopher, gophers eat more than half their body weight in food a day. They particularly like plants and vegetables, and they love digging holes. So make sure you have a really big backyard so they can dig holes everywhere. Well, I'm not actually going to be talking about the furry animal. So a little bit about who I am. I went to Georgia Tech for electrical engineering, and then I started at Intel as a product development engineer. So that's like pre- and post-silicon digital circuit debug. I wasn't doing any software at all. And then at Intel in May of 2015, I switched to a group that was using Go for writing an open source telemetry framework called Snap. We didn't have a logo at first, so I drew the first turtle there, and then we have a new one. And then I did a short contract at Docker for some of their workshops, and then I'm currently a developer advocate at Amazon. So who will this talk help? So obviously you've heard about Go since, well, you're all here, and if you hadn't, you heard about it when you walked in the door. Perhaps you're interested in learning the language, and you want to start off on the right foot, or maybe you already know it, but there are people that you want to help learn that are just starting. So why learn Go? So Go is no longer niche. It's particularly adapted for concurrent I/O. It's very readable, it's fast, it can compile into single binaries. It's really great for distributed systems and microservices. So a little bit of the outline. So I'm going to start with where to begin. This is where I think people should start, and it's also where I started. A bunch of different other websites besides just the beginning. Some of the tools that you can use to make coding in Go a lot easier. Different types of trainings. Different places you can go to get more coding practice, because you don't only want to just read how other people wrote code, you need to implement it yourself too. And one of the great things about Go, besides just the language, are the many communities that are out there. And then there's also, of course, conferences, as you know, since, well, you're here. So, where to begin? So, the place that I started, and that many people recommend to start at, is the tour of Go. It's from basic concepts to advanced ones, such as concurrency. There's examples, exercises. It's available in many languages, and it's offline. So this is the tour of Go. So on the left, it has an explanation. There's more explanations for later in the code. If you are in packages, and it explains how it works. You can see the code. You can edit it, do whatever you want in it. You can reset it, and you can run it. And it tells you my favorite number is 1. So in addition to having all of these examples that you could run, there's also the Godox, because sometimes you are looking at the tour of Go, and there are packages or functions, and you're like, I don't know how this works. What is happening here? So there's the Godox. So for Godox, here is an example. This one is for string conversions. So it has a part of the code of how the function is written. Some of them have examples that you can do, which look a lot like the tour of Go, and you can run these and edit them. And then if you want to know how is this code actually working, sure, I can see a comment, and I can see the function. If you click on the function, it will jump to the source code. So then you can go and see how is this code written. And one of the great things about the Godox, like the tour of Go, is that it's offline as well. So say I want to go write code on a plane. All you need is your laptop and the offline versions. You can start writing code, go look at the source code for it. You can go into a cabin in the middle of the forest if you want and still code and go. And as I mentioned, there's the source code. So that's usually where people tell you, hey, you should go and start with the tour of Go, and maybe they'll tell you about Godox and the source code, but that's really not enough information for a lot of people. For me, I would find functions, or there would be things that I would not know how to code, and there just wasn't enough of how do you put these packages together, how do I use OS with Buff.io, etc. So there's a bunch of other websites that I came across that I found super useful for this. So the first one was Go by Example. So for Go by Example, it has it's broken down into topics such as like arrays, concurrency, if, for, etc. And it'll have code explanations in the output for it. So for this is one for arrays. On the left side, it has explanations of what's happening with it. And there are a bunch of print statements on the right side with the code. And it has the output that you expect. So if you go and run this somewhere else, and if you want to make changes to it, you can see exactly what's happening. And as I was mentioning, it's a bunch of different things like recursion, pointers, etc. And this is just a screen capture of what I just showed you. So there's also socket loop that I found really useful. So I was needing to untar a file. In Linux, on the command line, you just have one command, and it does everything for you. I didn't know how to do this in Go. So I couldn't go to the Go by Example. Tour of Go doesn't tell me that. And parsing through the Godoc, I just didn't know how it all pieced together. So I was searching, how do I do that? And I came across socket loop. So socket loop is a little different than Go by Example. Unlike Go by Example, where it has all the explanation on one side and the code on the other, this one has just a whole block of code with code comments through it, just like when you're writing your own code. And they're usually longer blocks of text. So for this one, if you can see that it's untar or extract file, as a little description at the top as to what's happening, and then a bunch of code of how to do it, and it also tells you the sample output, so you can run it and make sure it's the exact same thing. And there are a bunch of different other topics out there. If you go to the main page, it's not all in Go, and the internet's slow, so I'm not doing that. So there's obviously a bunch of other websites out there that explain how you can use Go, but I'm not going to go into those at the moment. So some of the other things out there are blogs. A lot of people in the Go community are very prolific writers. So the first one is the official Golang blog. This is written by people who actually work on Go at Google. So most recently, there was a post about what's new with Go 1.8. So it's a great place to see, hey, what has changed, what's been added, and you can look back at the previous versions to see what has changed with those as well. So here's the one for Go 1.8 is released as a description. There are links that you can click. So there's also Dave Cheneys' blog. So when I was trying to figure out why my channel and my code was panicking, it was test code that I had at work, and it was intermittent. Every so often it would fail, and I didn't know why. Why was this panicking? So I was searching about channels, and I came across Dave Cheneys' blog, and he'll give very detailed explanations of the code. So for this one, it's called Curious Channels, and there's things like a closed channel never blocks. He shows the code for that and the example, and there's a bunch of other ones there, and he just details it out for you. And it basically just went and answered my question. So you might not be able to see this, but my issue was ascend to a closed channel panics. I didn't know much about channels at the time, so I didn't realize that that was why I was panicking. And some of the other things on his website are there's a post that he recently did of how to write a proposal for Gopher Con, which obviously can apply to many other conferences, whether it's Go or other. And he also has a page out there for where to start as well. So you can look through the different books, websites, etc. that he recommends for where to start with Go. Another one that I thought was really useful was Bill Kennedy's blog. So for this one, say one of the examples is how do you use pointers in Go? Perhaps you haven't used pointers much, or if ever, and you're wondering, how do I use it in Go? So there's a long explanation. This is just the intro snippet of that. So another one is the Gopher Academy blog. I really like this one because it's written by a bunch of different people. You have different people's types of coding, different people's perspectives. There's some that are more technical about the code. There's just such a big variety in it. So here's Gopher Academy. As I mentioned, there's Dave Cheneys' post about Gopher Con proposal. This is both on his website as well as on here. There's some other ones, such as there's another one from Go 1.8 that is written by Florin and Filippo, who's speaking tomorrow. So now you have a bunch of websites to start with, and you can go and read some of the code on those. You can go read some of the blogs. But some people learn better by having training, whether it's online or in person. So for online training, there's Todd McLeod's YouTube site, which has videos, and then there's also a GitHub page, which you can go and see the different topics there, pull down the code, run it, see how it works. And there's also a Plural site with Nigel Poulton that has Go fundamentals, as well as many other people who have put their stuff out there. The thing with Plural site, though, is that you either need a free trial or you have to pay for it. The great thing about the online training is you don't have to go anywhere for it. You can just sit at home or wherever you want. You can replay it as many times as you want. You can do it as slow as you want. But it's not always the same as having actual in-person training. So several months into learning Go, I went to Bill Kennedy's workshop. I wish I had actually gone earlier. So even if you're a beginner and feel, oh, maybe it's too advanced for me, it's not. It starts from the very beginning, basic concepts, and it goes all the way through more advanced ones, such as concurrency. And there are examples that you can run in the Go playground, which I'll show later. And you can also run on your own page. There are also exercises after each topic that is gone over. There is a template that you need to fill out and try to get the code to have a specific output. And one of the great things about this is that there are TAs around that can go and help you if you have any questions. So some people feel they learn better by books versus having to be on their computer or having to go and listen to a talk. You can bring it pretty much anywhere with you. You don't need the internet either or a laptop. So there's the Go programming language, and it's written by Alan Donovan and Brian Jernigan. Some of you may have heard of Brian from the C programming book. He was one of the two authors of that. There's also Go in Action, which is by Bill Kennedy, Brian Kettleson, and Eric St. Martin. I was using this, and I really like it because if you run into any of the code examples in the book and you want to go and actually test them, you can go to the GitHub page, pull down all of the code, and run it yourself. You can add print statements and be like, how is this working? What's happening here? So now that you know a bunch of websites, there's books, and there's different trainings, you need to actually spend more time writing code. So when you're writing the code, There are many tools that are really helpful to make this easier versus, say, if you're just using a plain text editor. So as I mentioned, there's the Go Playground. This is great if you're trying to test, like, how do I do something with arrays, or just maybe like a single file. So it's kind of like the tour of Go. And then you can have, like, you can format it. So say if I hit tab, you can format it if the internet worked. So you can just run your code in here, see what's happening. If I hit run, it will tell me the output. So if you're trying to use a bunch of different files, different packages, it might not be the best place to do it, or if you're doing your own work. So maybe using a different, like an actual editor. For me, I use VS Code with VS Code Go plugin. There's other things like Sublime, there's Vim with Vingo, and many other ones. So some of the tooling is really useful. So in Go, you have to do a certain formatting. There's Go font that will format your code. So as I was showing in the playground, say if I hit tab, just because I feel like it, if you hit format, it'll fix it for you, so you don't have to do anything. I have format on save turned on, so then I just save and it'll automatically do it for me. There's also Go imports. So with Go, at the beginning of each file, you have to list all the packages you're importing. This can be tedious if you if you add something, delete it, and have to manually type it in yourself. It will automatically add them for you. For me, I have it when I do save. In the playground, you can also do this. So say if I decided I'm going to go delete this line. Whoops. So if I deleted that, and I'm just going to do a string conversion. If I click format, it should have worked, but it deleted it. So, okay, so here, if I delete it, and I save, you can see that font disappeared. And if I put it back, and if I got rid of it there, if I save, it puts it back. So there's also autocomplete. This was really useful when I was trying to learn code. I was at work, and there were a bunch of parameters or variables and methods, and I was just like, there's so much going on. I don't know how this works. So I could go to one of them. I could hit a period, and it would tell me all the methods or different things that I could do with it. And it's very helpful with learning. So say if I'm here and I'm like, what does font have in it? So if I do FMT and I hit the period, you can see all the different things that you can use with it, like printf, println, etc. There's also Godef, which is also really useful when you're trying to learn code. So say somebody has their own functions, methods, or they're already in the library, but you don't know what they're doing. So you can jump directly to the code. For VS Code, there's two ways of doing it, which I really like. So you could go directly to the definition and jump there, or you could just do something like peek definition. So this shows the code right there. You're not leaving the file, and it says, here's what I2A does. All right, so now that you have these tools and things that you've learned from, you need to actually practice coding. So there are a bunch of coding challenges out there that aren't necessarily Go specific, but you have the option of using Go. There's sites like HackerRank and CodeEval. There's monthly Go challenges. There are projects, so say if you run something in a different language, you can rewrite it in Go. And you can also find a bunch of projects online. There's a GitHub wiki, and it just breaks it down by different topics, such as like you could have monitoring, logging, or you could like work on what I was working on. They were all open source. There was Snap, Docker, Amazon, ECS. So where I started is I started at testing because there was so much code I didn't know how it worked. So I think that the best place to start is unit testing. You're just trying to get testing for a single file, trying to figure out how that one works. And then moving on to integration testing, where you're dealing with a bunch of different files. And then after that, start adding features. But of course, once you add features, you need to add testing to that as well to make sure it's actually working. One of the great things about Go, besides, so obviously there's the code itself, but there's the communities. There's just a great abundance of them in different like meetups, online. So some of the things are like maybe you have coworkers or mentors if you're using Go at work. There is Gopher Slack. So there's a Slack channel at the moment for Gopher Con in India. So if you're not in there, you should join it, and people can meet up, do things later, etc. And there's other things for like Golang newbies, or there's a general channel. Basically, you can ask any Go questions you want. There are people all over the world, so someone will have the answer to your question. There's also the Go Nuts Google group. So the thing about Slack is it goes by so fast, and you may not keep up with it, whereas the Google group, there are a bunch of different topics, and you can go and read the different topics there. Whoops. Technical difficulties. All right. So let me quit. All right. So you can have different topics. You can click on them, and it will have examples of how that works, people asking questions. So there's also meetups and organizations. So there's the local Go meetups. Like in Seattle, there's a Go meetup there. There's Go Bridge, which is for underrepresented communities. There's Women Who Go for people who are identifying as women. So these are kind of like mini conferences. There's way fewer people at them, and there's usually way fewer talks as well. It's also a great place if you are trying to practice for a conference yourself. Just go to a meetup, give a talk there. And of course, there's conferences, as you all know, because, well, you're here. So there are large-scale versions of meetups, as I was mentioning, more talks, more people, and there's many Go-specific ones. There's a wiki page that lists all of them. Some of them are Gopher Con that's in Denver, and even if you can't actually attend, the videos all end up being posted. People will post their slides as well, so you can just follow along even if you're not there, and it's free. There's Gopher Con India, obviously. Dubai, Brazil, Singapore, they all have cute little logos. Golang UK, .go, GoLab, Gotham Go, Gopher Con China, and there's a bunch of other ones as well. So image credits, I didn't make anything besides the first snapping turtle. All the Gopher images are based on Renee French's design, made by other people in the community, and XKCD. So thank you.
All right, we have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions, please. Yes, we have one.
Setting up Go app or Go in your development machine is easy, but it's still not that much easy. Okay, we need something that's like one download and done. Editor is fully set up with SDK and everything. Is there such a thing? Is there out there or?
Yes, the good person to talk to is Francesc right there.
Exactly.
We know could be much better, and we're actually working on it. We created a working group similar to the Kubernetes working groups, like there's specific interest, and our specific interest is to improve the developer experience, especially for beginners. So we're thinking about improving the installers, but also what is the first day experience of a Gopher, stuff like that. Even for people that have never programmed, also for people that have programmed a lot, but not in Go. How does that thing work? One of the first things that we've done, actually even before starting that, we've been talking about it for quite a while. Go path is optional in Go 1.8. That's one of the efforts. We're trying to make that easier in general.
All right, we probably have time for one more question. Thanks for taking that one, Francesc. Okay, sorry, we have a couple of people here.
Are there any recommendations for security testing tool or static code analysis tool for Go language? Because right now, none of the commercial tools like checkmarks or Coverity, they have support for it. So, any recommendations for those activities?
I don't actually know. But I can try to find out and let you know.
So I think there are a few tools which are available for static code analysis. Among the services, I think Code Climate is also looking at some Go code static analysis. You might want to look at that too. Okay, was there a question right behind you? I'm sorry, I can't see from here. Is there anybody else there? Okay, so thank you so much, Tiffany. Loud round of applause, please.